We're inching closer to seeing these guys on the field, and it's time to talk about what they look like on the depth chart. Way too early as it might be, I think today's video, Irish Rafael, managing editor of Warchant.com, that this position group feels pretty settled, at least at the top. We're talking about quarterbacks for Florida State in 2025, and we're talking about where Florida State is going to look for their primary reserve, maybe some interesting storylines behind Thomas Castellanos, who has come to town for Florida State down from Chestnut Hill. He was a thorn in Florida State's side, Ira, and he is going to be the impetus for a lot of hope that Gus Malzahn's offense can work in year one in Tallahassee.
Yeah, no question. I really think when Castellanos committed, I think though to see how important he was to Florida State, really all you need to do is look at how quickly that process went. As soon as the portal opened, as soon as they could get him on campus, as soon as they could get a commitment, they got it. It was streamlined, and he played an important role in them getting some of these other transfers. And again, I know some FSU fans were a little lukewarm about it, but if they don't get Thomas Castellanos, I'm not sure they get Deuce Robinson. I'm not sure they get Squirrel White. I think he is a proven playmaker, and again, he's not the passer that Jameis Winston was in college, but he's clearly a playmaker. And Florida State fans saw that up close when he came to Tallahassee last year and led BC to a victory, mostly throwing the ball, and then in their running game overall, but not really him running it. And then the year before, he had 400 yards against FSU. So, he's going to be the focal point of this offense. And I think they identified him in the early conversation between Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn about maybe Gus Malzahn coming in as offensive coordinator. I think Thomas Castellanos was already a piece that they were banking on getting because of their prior relationships.
It's funny how things work out, especially in the transfer portal era, that you might want to save your opinion on social media or the message boards on warchant.com. Don't be as harsh because then if they have receipts, that guy might be on your team a year from now.
It really is amazing. And you got the sense, because Mike Norvell did really like Thomas Castellanos coming out of high school. He liked him as an athlete. He thought he was a guy he wanted in his offense. He just didn't necessarily want him as his quarterback. He had questions about his passing and that type of thing. But man, I think once he saw him up close and personal, those two games, I think he really kind of regretted that. And I thought Castellanos, honestly, I think played with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder against Florida State because I think he wanted to come to Florida State. He's from South Georgia over in Waycross. And, I think Florida State was a school he really wanted to be at and didn't get that offer. I think he relished playing well against FSU. And yeah, man, the game in 2023 up there, BC ran out of time. Florida State didn't really win that game. BC ran out of time and they got a huge face mask penalty at the end of that game that kind of bailed Florida State out a little bit. But yeah, I don't think anybody in that locker room questions whether or not he can help them win football games.
I totally agree with you about some of the transfer portal acquisitions. Castellanos was on the phone a lot with the Robinson camp the moment that he was entered into the portal, and it seemed like Florida State had a chance. Florida State's new quarterback was doing the things that everybody wants a quarterback to do, which was actively recruiting and trying to bolster the roster. If we're looking at the backup situation at Florida State, Brock Glenn, there's going to be a sour taste in people's mouths because they look at 2-10 from last season and they pin a lot of it on the different quarterbacks that Florida State had. Brock Glenn was the primary backup, played an awful lot last season. And then the cult hero status, he's not quite a cult hero, but Trevor Jackson, Ira, is asked about a ton on the boards. How do you look at this battle in spring? Do you think it's an even competition? Is Brock way ahead? What did you think about when you saw Trevor Jackson in fall camp, some of the reps that he got in those situations? Because I think a lot of fans are making the leap to say, well, if he's mobile, therefore he must be a better fit in Gus Malzahn's offense. But it's not like Brock Glenn's not mobile. So how do you sort through all of that?
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a fun competition to watch. I do think it's pretty wide open. Brock Glenn has played in college football games, so that gives him an advantage. We've never seen Trevor Jackson walk out there in front of 70,000 people or 80,000 people the way Brock Glenn has. So that, from that standpoint, the guy started an ACC championship game as a true freshman. So from that standpoint, he's at least been in those moments. Trevor Jackson is not. So that gives him an advantage, but not a huge one. And I do think one of Brock Glenn's assets that he brings to the table is his athleticism, his toughness, his willingness to run. I think those are all positive things. But Trevor Jackson has probably better running ability. They both really need to improve their passing accuracy. I think that's got to be the goal. And again, we've talked so much about Gus Malzahn's offense and the quarterback being used as a weapon in the running game, and that's important. But then they both have to improve their passing. Brock Glenn, I felt like, just since he's been here, it's just been a little too inconsistent from a passing standpoint. And Trevor Jackson's still very young and raw and needs to get better. So that to me will be the focus for those guys because the athleticism is going to be there. And I have no doubt about the toughness from Brock Glenn. I don't know. I haven't seen Trevor Jackson get hit. I have seen him run around. He's definitely athletic. And I've also seen him make some big plays. He also plays with a lot of personality. One thing I like about both of those guys is neither one of them is a shrinking violet. They both, and again, this isn't to dog Tate Rodemaker because I like Tate Rodemaker a lot as a person, but he didn't bring a lot of energy when he would come into the game. Those two guys bring energy, and I think that's a good thing for a backup quarterback. And so I think that's going to be a fun competition to watch. If I had to handicap it right now, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's probably a toss-up. I'd probably give Brock Glenn a slight edge right now just because he has played on Saturdays, but I don't think it's much of an edge. How about you?
Well, yeah, a new set of eyes changes everything, and that goes across the board when we're doing these depth charts and we're breaking them down on Warchant TV. You can find these articles, and I'm going to link them in the comments section to warchant.com's feature, Ira's features on all of these position groups. When a new set of eyes comes in, and I know they don't necessarily have a new position coach, Tony Tokars is going to continue to be that, but the offensive coordinator can change everything in just a few practices. I still think Brock is the prohibitive favorite to be the backup here because he has the tools. If he was a statue like DJ, if he was like DJU from a style standpoint, I'd say then this is Trevor Jackson's job and it's his to lose. But I mean, Brock can move. We're going to talk about a freshman that I really like, actually, that Florida State signed in this recent class, maybe the fit for Gus Malzahn's offense. But before we do, our sponsor for today's video is State Farm agent Russ Voorhis, a longtime Noles supporter of Warchant.com, supporter of Florida State athletics top to bottom. Russ is outstanding in the field of insurance. He covers you with his friends at State Farm, state of Florida, state of Georgia, state of Alabama. If you live in any of those three states, Russ Voorhis can cover you. If you like supporting Noles, who support what we do, that's exactly what Russ Voorhis is. Ira, he's as big of a Nole, literally and figuratively, as there is out there.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be in a better disposition this season. Last season was tough on Russ, like a lot of Florida State fans, and you can tell that. But yeah, I mean, we really recommend him highly. He's a good guy. Really cares about Florida State fans. If you do reach out to Russ Voorhis insurance company and you reach out to their offices in person or over in Jacksonville or on the phone, if you're anywhere in the tri-state area, you can. If you mention you heard about him on Warchant. They appreciate that. They like it, knowing that they're helping fellow Noles. And I actually saw Russ post on social media the other day that they may be doing some hiring. So I think business is booming. I think things are going well over at Russ Voorhis Insurance. So people need to check them out.
For those of you that are listening on the pod version of this, I'll spell his name out. That's the website, russvorhis.com, russvorhis.com, russvorhis.com. Awesome guy. Awesome Nole. And now to the quarterback situation, the freshman coming in, Ira. It annoys me when people say, if you look at his film, if you look at his huddle highlight tape, I think that's the more accurate thing. If you look at the huddle highlight tape, Kevin Sperry out of Denton, Texas, 6'1", 200 pounds. He's going to be one of the new long-term projects for Florida State at quarterback. I love this kid's skill set. I think it fits what Gus wants to do. He's not going to be a runner like Castellanos, but he can move, and he looks like he can throw from all parts of the pocket, outside of the pocket, on the move, statue-esque if you want him to be that way, zone read stuff. This is a nice pickup and a good fit for us to be monitoring in spring camp and fall camp this year.
Yeah, it is. And I'll give a shout out to our guy, Matt Lasser. He was talking to some people around the team recently who told him that they've been really impressed by his athleticism. Just in the short time he's been on campus, watching him go through some early workouts. They've already started their tour of duty workouts, and apparently, man, he can really fly. And so, yeah, man, another good fit. And it's a cool recruiting story because similar in some degree to Castellanos, because Castellanos wanted to be a Nole. It didn't work out. Florida State didn't want him as a quarterback. He leaves, proves himself, comes back. Sperry was a guy that was close to committing to Florida State early in the recruiting process, but they got a commitment from another quarterback. And quarterbacks these days, they're not trying to sign 2 or 3 at a time a lot of times because in the same class, because kids aren't going to stick around anyway. So things cooled off there. He went in a different direction. That player left, decommitted. That opened the door, and Florida State was able to really luck out. And I think from a fan's perspective, sometimes a media perspective, you hear about a late addition at a position of need, and you say, oh, is it just a take just to get a body? I really don't think that's the case. I think this is a quarterback they really liked from the beginning. And I think now with Gus Malzahn coming in, I think that really just kind of it all fit really well together. And it sounds like he's going to be a nice addition to the room. Again, obviously we think Brock Glenn probably has an edge on Trevor Jackson, and now you've got a true freshman who's never been on a college campus before. You feel like he starts out fourth, but it wouldn't be a shock if he got in the mix at some point.
New sheriff in town means a lot of things it can happen, but we don't expect anybody to jump number one on the list. That's Thomas Castellanos. So Ira, just briefly, we have a bit of about a month and a half to go until spring camp. We don't know the exact date yet. Thomas Castellanos is going to speak to the media for the first time on Tuesday of this upcoming week. Just what are you monitoring in the early portion of spring tour of duty, first impressions of spring camp? What are some things you're looking for at quarterback? Just some answers you're looking to get.
Well, really, I think his connection to these players is going to be big. His leadership is going to be huge. That's a piece with Thomas Castellanos that I don't think gets talked about a lot because of his athletic ability. That's kind of the focus. But if you watch the way he plays on the field, the energy he brings, I've gone back and read some of the things his high school coaches said about him and what a leader he was at that level. And I really think when you look at this team last year, man, it just felt like, especially on offense, but really the whole team, they didn't have a lot of alphas. They didn't have a lot of guys to kind of rally the troops and get everybody energized and get them believing. And I feel like that's something he may bring as well. So I'm curious to see if anything we could pick up from his interactions so far. And then I also want to hear what he thinks about these guys, because I think this group coming in is going to be this group of transfers is going to be really important in terms of helping reset the culture of where this program is. Because, man, it was floundering a year ago. 2 years ago was great. 3 years ago was great. This past year, man, they were floundering. And I'm really kind of eager to hear what he and these other transfers say about their early interactions with their new teammates.
It reminds me of the video games yesteryear mass substitution button. You just substitute in a whole new team. Well, that's what it's like in the portal. 4 new offensive linemen, new receivers, new quarterback. We'll see if they add more in the spring window. Tight ends, a couple of them as well. Castellanos will be at the forefront of that. And if you want a complete rundown of Florida State's way too early projections for the depth charts, we've got a series coming for you here on Warchant TV. Already a couple are live. So stay tuned to the channel. Hit the like button underneath the video. Subscribe to Warchant TV. Absolutely free. And as always, check the links below because you'll get to see Ira's piece on warchant.com. We hope you sign up and join us if you haven't already. Ira, appreciate the time.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. We'll talk to you everybody next time right here on Warchant TV.